Does pickleball strengthen the community?
I would say it does. I feel very much like I belong in JP now, much more so than I did before. I know so many more people now, and it's a friendlier place.
Yeah. We saw it being played here around 6 years ago. They dragged us onto the court, started, couldn't stop.
I think it really started here at South Street. Karen McCormick started it, and we started off with a small group, and it just grew from there. And now there's, wherever you go, there's pickleball courts, indoors, outdoors. It's the fastest growing sport.
Well, we had to work with the city to get lines, and so Karen and Susan were instrumental to get the courts lined. We used to use tape. And the city, the Parks and Rec department has been really receptive.
Yeah, and now we want them to get dedicated pickleball courts. That's our next feat.
Karen McCormick. I got into pickleball because a very good friend of mine told me about pickleball that she had witnessed and watched in Martha's Vineyard, and came back to Jamaica Plain, to Boston, saying that we should learn this game, and that that there were a lot of older people playing it, and that we definitely would do really well playing it. And we have courts very close to our office, and so that's how I got into it. And because we're in such a busy area, Jamaica Plain and South Street is very busy, people watched us playing and would come up and ask questions, and we would pull them into play. Sometimes we would just look for people in sneakers, and really we would bring them off the street to play pickleball. And also because there are tennis courts, there are 2 tennis courts on these pickleball courts, they would come to play tennis, and we would ask them if they would jump in and play with us. So that put a small ad in our local newspaper here in Jamaica Plain, in the Gazette, welcoming anybody to learn pickleball on Saturday mornings. And we ended up having 20 to 30 people every single Saturday, new people showing up. So then we had only learned it 4, 5, 6 weeks before, and now we were turning around and teaching it. And that happened for 2 years. So that started in 2017. And then in 2019, we started talking to the city on a regular basis about lining the courts for us, because we realized how many people wanted to get into this sport. 2020 came along, the beginning of 2020, and we weren't allowed to have pickleball on the courts because of the pandemic. And it was a time for us to really push the city to put the lines in for when we were going to be back. And in that time, from the beginning of 2020 to the very end, we had over 100 people reach out to us because they wanted to get out of the house. And being able to play a sport outside was going to be that way for them to do that. And so by the end of 2020, leading into 2021, we got the courts lined by the city. So we got 6 courts lined. And then in 2021, our list was 300 people. And then what we would do, the group of my friends, and some of these people I had just met from, like I said, pulling them off the street at the very beginning, we all ended up being very good at teaching, even though we probably would not have been if we weren't thrown into it with having brand new people show up all the time. But we were reading the rule books, we were online finding out all the different rules that were changing, rules that had changed. And so we were teaching every single Saturday on 3 courts, while people that knew how to play, some of our friends, would play on the other 3 courts. So we were constantly teaching new people. And people ask me a lot how I became the person in Jamaica Plain to be the one that brought it to JP. And I think that's one of the biggest ways. If you teach that many people how to play, and it's already a game that I didn't have to do anything to make it fun. It is a super fun game that has a low barrier of entry. So you can learn the rules quickly. You can be playing a game within a half hour of learning how to play. And we just taught 30, 60, 90 people every month or so. And now we're just topping out at 500 people on our list for Jamaica Plain, which has meant the last couple of years has made the courts untenable, really, for the amount of people that we have. So we've been pushing the city to give us courts in other parts of the city, and they have. They've been doing their best to line as many courts as they can for the number of people that have been coming into the sport. And now trying to get more courts, it's definitely really staying in constant communication, not being annoyed at the slowness of the process, recognizing that there are a lot of people involved. And with the courts that I want at English High School, there are different, there's the DCR that's involved along with the City of Boston. And so that is a real issue that I think we just had to recognize, that things don't happen as quickly as we want them to happen. In the first iteration of how they had the courts laid out, I have it up on the wall over there, it was not, because these people did not know the sport, they had the lines for different courts touching each other, which if you know the sport at all, that wasn't possible. So we did have to give real suggestions of how it could be done. And they listened, and we did get the courts that we wanted.
At being the only Black person out here, I have to admit that I have made friends with people that I probably would not have made friends with were it not for pickleball, right? Because I'm not sure our circles would necessarily have overlapped if not for this game.
I met Pam in pickleball during COVID.
Yeah.
At the community center.
At Shelburne
Community Center,
Yep.
and we played indoors with masks on, and I'm glad to know this lady.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's one way for sure, and I'm glad for it.
Favorite things about pickleball, and I felt like this from the very beginning of teaching people, that if and when people came to the courts and said they had just moved to Boston, or they're just doing their residency, or they moved because their daughter had a grandchild, and so that they didn't necessarily have a connection to Jamaica Plain that was them living here, there was something sparked inside of me that I did want them to feel like they belonged. And that is what happened for so many people. They got into a group with 4, 8, 10, 15 people, and all of a sudden they had people that they were texting on a regular basis to come and play pickleball. It really does work like that. And I was joking with friends at a party the other night that when somebody says they want to meet somebody romantically, or they lost their group of friends because they moved, my first thought is pickleball, always. And I don't think it's the answer to everything, but it really does bring a lot of people together, ages, socioeconomic, like nothing really matters when it comes to pickleball. It's having fun and getting out there and playing a sport.